Good morning and welcome. It's 10 a.m. India time or 4:30 GMT. First up, in an attempt to boost its influence in the Indian Ocean region, China will invest another $1 billion in a construction project near Sri Lanka's main deep-sea port. The fresh project involves construction of 3 60-story buildings near the port. The controversial project was launched after Chinese President Xi Jinping visited Colombo in the year 2014. But works was suspended by the new government in Sri Lanka in the year 2015. Now, the project was revived after state-owned Chinese construction company entered into a fresh agreement with the government in 2016, despite concerns raised by India. Now, the new deal follows an earlier Chinese investment of $1.4 billion to carry out reclamation work for Colombo International Financial City development. The two countries hope the project will create a financial center in the Indian Ocean comparable with those in Singapore and Europe, drawing billions in foreign investment and thousands of jobs. Now, China has been accused of seeking to develop facilities around the Indian Ocean in a string of pearls strategy to counter the rise of its rival and secure its own economic interests. All right, so just to bring our viewers with the story we are tracking here on WION this morning. In an attempt to boost its influence in the Indian Ocean region, China will invest another $1 billion in a construction project near Sri Lanka's main deep-sea port. The fresh project involves construction of 3 60-story buildings near this port. Now, the controversial project was launched after Chinese President Xi Jinping visited Sri Lanka in 2014. But work was suspended by the new government in Sri Lanka in 2015. Now, the project was revived after state-owned Chinese construction company entered into a fresh agreement with the government in 2016. All right, I'm told we're now joined by Professor M.D. Nalapat, a close China watcher, among other things. Good morning, Professor Nalapat. We're hearing about news of China reviving this construction development project in Colombo. What do you make of the Chinese foray into the Indian Ocean region in a big way this year?
Well, the reality is that Sri Lanka is positioned in such a way that its location gives it a kind of a reach, in a sense, of the entire Indian Ocean. So Sri Lanka is absolutely core to any kind of activity in the Indian Ocean. And the Chinese are very frankly looking at the Indian Ocean. They're looking at it not only because of the sea lanes reaching into China from West Asia and from Africa across the Indian Ocean, but also they see themselves as a kind of a global power. So from that point of view, Sri Lanka is extremely important for China. And from the 1950s, China has been courting Sri Lanka.
And also, Professor Nalapat, how should India respond to this new challenge?
Look, the fact of the matter is that even though India and China were roughly equal in the 1980s, now China is 5 times bigger than India as an economy. I think India needs to focus on its own economic growth and understand that until the economic growth reaches 9, 10, 11%, it's not really going to be taken as seriously as it should be taken. So the important point is, one, the Chinese are a fact of life in Sri Lanka, in South Asia, and frankly also in India. And two, the question is how this situation can be managed in such a way that it promotes economic development in India rather than retards economic development. Ultimately, Indian strength and security will be based on the growth of the economy of India.
Professor Nalapat, I have to ask you this. If you take a step back for a moment and look at India's immediate neighborhood and taking into factor Prime Minister Modi's neighborhood first policy, if you look around the map, you have Pakistan uncertain, Afghanistan elections due, Bangladesh elections due, Nepal already has an election where a left alliance has come to power. Sri Lanka, as we've been discussing, is divided between or torn between India and China. So what next for India's neighborhood first policy?
Well, the fact of the matter is that if you look at India's economic interest, East Asia is way more important than South Asia is for India. From the point of view of trade and economy and the number of jobs, both potential and actual. Yes, you're perfectly right. In Nepal, for example, recently, the communist parties have come together. They are very friendly to China. In Sri Lanka, the Sri Lankan government believes that they need Chinese investment to expand Sri Lanka's economic development. And Sri Lanka, like India, is a young population. The people there want economic development. Bangladesh has got the same point of view. And as for Pakistan, quite frankly, Pakistan has become virtually a satellite of China. So all this is taking place. So the point is, we have to manage our relationship with China in such a way that meets our interests. And the question is, we cannot reflexively adopt a black or white policy that everything that China does is black or everything it does is completely kosher. We have to manage our policy with China in such a way that we enter upon a period of high growth. It is possible. The fact is, China has a lot more to gain from India than it has to gain from all the other countries in South Asia combined. So I think India needs to leverage that special advantage India can give in such a way that it matches its own needs.
All right, it's not entirely black and white when it comes to India-China relations, says Professor Nalapat. India, he says, should explore shades of grey as well. On that note, Professor Nalapat, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with me this morning. That was Professor M.D. Nalapat sharing his thoughts with WION.